I would give the suggestion that if you're really knocking your head against the wall and not finding a job on the Hill.
Now, in terms of your expertise in the DC job market, would love to delve into what to expect for 2022. People are probably going to be looking into what will be a campaign year and a possibly like volatile one. What are your top three predictions for people looking for a DC job in 2022? Whether
Looking
it's
for the
Congress, the administration, or lobbying, what are your top three predictions?
top three predictions for 2022 is there will be some overturn on the Hill when people leave to go on campaigns, whether it's their boss's reelection or somebody challenging a current member, because they will see opportunities to get a promotion if they leave and then come back with that winning candidate, having had that DC experience. But always at the entry level, there's this influx of folks in the spring that graduate from college or their grad degrees that are all interns, all looking for positions. I think that there could be some turnover on the Hill, especially with Republicans predicted to do really well this upcoming cycle. So that if you're a Republican, maybe leaving that job or not getting that job on the Hill as an entry level staffer and going to that campaign and picking a winning campaign, and then that person brings you back to DC is a great thing to try. There's also some natural turnover in the administration. 2 years into administration, some people will leave. So there'll be some folk on the Hill going down in the administration. There'll be turnover there.
And in terms of the lobbying space, will there be any change in 2022? Will it all depend on what happens in November? Like, how does the private sector react to what happens in the government after an election year?
So the private sector is still hiring senior Democrats to deal with the Democratic White House. It'll be for another at least 3 years. So they're in that cycle. They might see the tide turning on the chance that Republicans take the House or possibly the House and Senate after 2022 election. And so they might hire up. But what I'm referring to mostly, like 90% of the time, is contract lobbying firms. Because contract lobbying firms need the relationships to open the doors and set up the meetings for their clients. In-house lobbying positions or in-house trade association positions are pretty much set, and they hire mostly party agnostic folks or people that can lobby both sides, or then utilize those contract lobbyists with those relationships to get them the contacts they need. On the communication side, public affairs side, sure, they might hire some people that have a little more of a right or left leaning tilt based upon who they think is going to win the next election. But the contract lobbyists in the private sector, they're really ones that kind of sway with the winds and hire up or down depending on who's in power. But at least for the next 4 years, you're going to have a split government, most likely, at least at some function of it. So you're going to need both parties.
In terms of the DC job market, does it typically stay pretty much the same, like cyclical, or have you seen any major shifts from when you first started on Capitol Hill to today?
I'd say the only shift in the almost 20 years we've been doing this is that the parties have gotten even more polarized and there are less middle of the road congressional folks, whether they're blue dog Democrats or Tuesday morning Republicans. Those don't really exist anymore. But the staff and the folks on the outside that are trying to influence the process or the policy do have to be bipartisan. You do have to work across aisles. Just because people in either parties are like doing things for tweets and retweets and likes doesn't mean the folks inside the government and outside the government are doing the same. So don't fall into that trap watching that and thinking that's what you do, because that's not what you do. I think that is the biggest change. But in the job market, I think it's pretty much stayed the same. You want people who can have relationships on both sides of the aisle, that work hard and have that good work product that they end up with. And that really is consistent.
And now, can you just tell me more about the Tom Manatos Jobs website? Why did you create it?
We created it because we wanted to lower the barrier of entry to politics from people of all walks of life. Whether you're progressive or conservative, when I started on the Hill, it was so hard to find out about the jobs. There was no Facebook, no Twitter, no LinkedIn. There was just email. In a leadership office, you get all these email lists. You're on the chief of staff list, you're on the scheduler list, the staff assistant list. Any job announcement I'd see, I cut and pasted and put in the draft folder of my Hotmail, and I'd hit send at the end of the day to the people that I knew that were looking. And so it became a thing that people on Capitol Hill said, hey, get on Tom Manatos' list. I was a Democrat, but I met a Republican working in the White House who I then married, and she's the one that convinced it to make it bipartisan. Once I left the Hill, we turned it into a website because so many people knew my name because of this email list. And my wife criticized me for sending it from my Hotmail account. So we made a professional website.
Hotmail?
There was search of, this is a long time ago. What we continue to do is put information out there about the jobs and information like this that we'll link to on our site, on videos like this that are helpful about finding out about how to get a job and networking you right there.
Just in the year, like let's say it's not an election year, do you find that there's a bump in job postings at a specific time during that year?
Not really during a let's say an off year. So 2021 is the year after an election. And but for like two gubernatorial races, there was really no big change. So in this year, obviously the beginning of this year, it's right after an election, there were a lot of turnover. There's a whole new Democratic administration. Actually, Republicans increased their seats on the Hill. So there's some more Republican Hill openings. And then there's just a natural change in jobs when a new administration comes in, people from that party go to the administration. So there are a lot of Democratic jobs later in the year. But then from spring, summer to the end of 2021, there wasn't a big influx. Then as we enter an election year, 2022, as is will be the case in 2024 and 26, when those election years happen, people do leave for campaigns to go work on a midterm race, a presidential race. There are some more openings there. Politics is so driven by the election cycle that even downtown, even the private sector jobs are driven by that too. If people think the Republicans are about to take Congress back, some contract lobbying firms might hire up Republicans in anticipation of that happening. In fact, I know one lobbying firm that hired a prominent Democrat thinking Hillary was going to win, and then Trump won. Now he kept his job, but that is what happens in at least the contract lobbying space. It's not the same for trade associations or in-house positions.
I mean, that makes sense. And it seems very cyclical. And then obviously like opportunistic with timing when it may be preferable based on your party politics of when you get hired if you're going for a political position. So how do you find the job postings? Are they more favorable to entry level or higher senior level positions?
I would say it's a little more entry level or mid level. So there are a lot of legislative correspondence, which is, if you're not familiar with the structure of the Hill, it's staff assistant, legislative correspondent, legislative assistant. And I'd say there are a lot of legislative assistant, legislative correspondent, and staff assistant roles. There are probably more legislative correspondent roles and staff assistants because, like you said, those entry level, they just swap up the interns. But I will say, in a push for a more diverse workforce, like writ large on the Hill on both parties, people are posting to see what they get. I would say that those folks coming out of school aren't necessarily qualified for the legislative correspondence and definitely not the legislative assistants. So why a lot of those are posted on our site, because folks know people on our site are either looking on the Hill or already on the Hill. So it's a great place to get applicants. And that's why you also see a lot of private sector postings, because they know it's everyone working on the Hill is pretty much on our site and gets our email. I would give the suggestion that if you're really knocking your head against the wall and not finding a job on the Hill, go get on a campaign. Even if you're a Democrat and you think the Democrats are going to lose this election, still it creates bonds with people you work on campaigns and will extend those folks that know you, the ability to help get a job.
If you enjoy this kind of content, either on personal finance or learning about your career in Washington, D.C., go ahead and hit that like button and press subscribe to be updated whenever new personal finance videos are released.
And one thing I left out earlier is the way our website works is every morning at 9:15 a.m., you get an email of all the jobs and internships that have been posted in the last 24 hours. And that's a free daily email. So you don't have to be paying a subscription to get that email every day. If your subscription lapses, you still get the email. Then when you click on it and you need to see the full posting and how to apply, then you can pay the fee, the $5 a month fee. That's the thing of our site is when you're on the Hill or you're in this business, you want to kind of keep an eye on the jobs. And that's what we do by sending that email Monday through Friday at 9:15 every morning, just so people can see. And then they can forward the email to other folks that they know that are looking to say, hey, I just had coffee with you the other day. Here's a legislative correspondent in this member's office. I know the chief. Let me know if you're interested. So that helps, again, the whole cycle of helping people find the jobs and helping others help others.
I remember sometimes you hear about a job early in the morning and then there's already 50 applications by the end of the day. And the people who are collecting it or the chief is like, look at this stack, Melissa. Look at all these people who want to work in our office. And then it goes tenfold for even committee positions, right?
Oh, yeah.
So definitely, I think getting a daily update and being immediately warned whenever a new job posting happens, you got to act fast when it comes to the Hill. And which I will say, given this current labor market where they're calling it the Great Resignation, I was like, I think DC is doing quite well with that, given still how many people are trying to find jobs working in either the administration or Congress.
Absolutely. Absolutely.